listening to that is someone who might know even more about what's going on in Belgorod, because in a UK exclusive, I'm joined now by Ilya Ponomarev, a former Russian entrepreneur and MP for both the Communist and the Just Russia parties in the past, who now speaks from Kiev for the Freedom of Russia Legion and the National Republican Army, which has claimed responsibility for the assassination of the pro-Kremlin journalist Daria Dugina in a car bombing. Ilya, thank you very much indeed for talking to me. Can you confirm that this incursion around Belgorod is indeed the anti-Putin Free Russian Forces?
Yes, for sure. Not a single Ukrainian soldier did not cross the border.
So all Russians. Tell me a little bit about this legion, its origins and what it actually stands for, because there are lots of allegations that it's very far right. The Russians call it a terrorist organization. Give us your explanation of, as it were, who you are.
No, there is a certain confusion here, because we are talking about two regiments which are taking part in this operation, and one regiment is called Russian Volunteer Corps, and that indeed is made of right-wing activists from Russia. It's very ideologically motivated. They are fighting in Ukraine since 2014. They were part of Azov movement, and they indeed are right-wing inclined. Legion, or Freedom of Russia, is not to the right or to the left. It's a very centrist organization, pretty much apolitical. It's a large organization. It's way larger than RVC. And it consists of Russian nationals who decided to defect from Russian army during
so
the invasion.
They're former Russian soldiers who've swapped sides.
Former Russian soldiers who swapped sides. These are Russian nationals who were living in Ukraine, just like married were Ukrainian women, or was at work in Ukraine but had Russian passports, and also a variety of Russian political activists who were crossing the border to join the Ukrainian military. But what is important, and your correspondent Jimmy was talking about this, that they are part of international legion, where all the different nationalities, they all group together, and the overall supervision over the international legion is in the hands of GUR, of Ukrainian military intelligence. But GUR is not in command of
So you're a bit like the famous International Brigade in the Spanish Civil War a long time ago. There is an overall military command, but you have independence on the. So this is really interesting. We saw some light tanks and some soldiers operating inside Russia. It seems there were drone footages of this. My question is this the beginning of something bigger? Is this the beginning of some kind of encircling operation by your forces inside Russia? At the back of the war zone, as it were?
Look, at the end of the day, this war would not end in Ukraine. This war can end only in Moscow. This war can end only when Putin's regime is replaced. And obviously, it would not be done by Ukrainians or by NATO forces, British forces, whatever. It would be done by Russians. Somebody needs to do it. We are very thankful for Ukrainians who are helping us in terms of training our forces and providing us with the necessary equipment. But it's our job. It's not fair if Ukrainians would spill their blood for our freedom. And yes, it is just the beginning, and we identify ourselves more like the Gaulle type movement. We have resistance units inside Russia, which are doing all the type of urban fighting. And you mentioned some of the episodes, but they way more. You saw recently the attack on Kremlin, for example. There were many others.
Was
and
that
yes,
your
there
people?
are military units.
That was your people? Because if you look at
we know. They are
people
Russians.
who you know. Okay, this is complicated because you mentioned two groups there, but there's also, apart from the Legion and the Volunteer Corps, there's the National Republican Army as well, the NRA inside Russia, and they were the people who used a car bomb to kill the journalist and pro-Kremlin propagandist, people would say, Daria. Now, however much people might object to her views and what she was saying and her father was saying, a lot of people around the world would say that is straightforward urban terrorism.
That's the other way around. These guys who were under attack, they were terrorists. All of them, they are recognized terrorists. They are officially terrorists. Dugina was operative of her father and was calling for an act of terror against Azov fighters who were bombed when they were POWs in Donetsk region. So it was a retaliatory attack. All others are exactly the same. Our guys, our urban partisans, they are doing counter-terrorism things, and they are real heroes, and they never target civilians, and that's what is more important, which distinguishes terrorism from resistance fight.
How big is the anti-Putin movement inside Russia?
My estimate is that it's approximately 1,000 people, maybe.
Quite small.
There are a lot of it's a lot of people who are taking like non-violent actions. There are people who help those partisans, but a number of people who are actually doing things, it's always small. Just again, remember about what happened in France during World War II. How large was French resistance movement, which we now admire, and this is the exact parallel. We like have the de Gaulle army inside the Allied forces, which are Russian nationals who are fighting against this government, and there is a resistance movement inside the country, and it's a very similar scale.
So if you were, as it were, the de Gaulle figure in this operation, can I ask you, what was the moment, can you remember the moment when you thought, I can have nothing to do with this regime, it has to be brought down? Because, as I say, you're an MP, way back, you're an MP for the Communist Party and then for the Just Russia Party in the Duma. So in a sense, you were part of the system one time.
I was never a deputy of the Communist Party. I was deputy of Social Democratic Party, but it doesn't matter anyway. I was left-wing all the way, and I was always in the opposition. I never have to do something with this regime. I was in the opposition. But being an MP, you obviously cooperate. The parliament is the collective exercise, and obviously I was in charge of innovation and modernizing the economy, so I did cooperate to make this regime better. But when all the options for evolutionary approach were depleted, so it's now revolutionary.
I think you were the only MP in the Duma to vote against the annexation of Crimea. I don't know if I'm right about that, but I've read that.
Yeah, there were several laws on that which I was alone to vote against.
Yeah, and was that the moment when you thought this is going in a direction which I must oppose the whole way?
Yes, obviously, I think it was a matter of national pride. It also was in the best interest of Russians, to do what we have done. Now it's a major bloodshed. You were just talking about Bakhmut, where 100,000 of Russians have died. It's awful. It's a national catastrophe, and we don't know whether Russia as a country would survive after all of this. And that's why these freedom fighters who are fighting against this regime is so important.
Final question. President Putin has control, almost complete control, of the media and, of course, the army and the police. Do you think there is any realistic chance of bringing him down?
Obviously, again, look at what's happening right now in Belgorod. There are lines of cars who are fleeing away from the action. And who are there? It's leaders of the civil administration, it's the police officers, it's FSB operatives. And you know what? There is a report that the chief of civil administration of this Graivoron, this district center in Belgorod region, already switched sides and is now working with our team. So
something very big may be happening there. Something very big may be happening there. Ilya Ponomarov, thank you so much for talking to me. Fascinating to hear you talk.